You're listening to audio from the Village Church, a community that's formed by the gospel and sent on God's mission, gathering weekly in the heart of downtown Hamilton, Ohio. For more information about the Village or to connect with us, you can find us online at myvillagechurch.com.
Welcome to an episode of the Formed and Sent podcast, a podcast by the Village Church for the Village Church that gathers in downtown Hamilton, Ohio. My name is Scott. I'm one of the pastors here of the Village, and joining me today is...
Matt Tucker, one of the pastors of the Village as well.
Hey, Scott and Matt. My name is Michael Graham.
Greetings to you and yours, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, you as well.
It's been a long time since we've done one of these. I was thinking on the drive-in this morning that if folks have been around even for like a year, they may not even know that we ever do a podcast. And so if you didn't know we did these things, we do them occasionally. We used to do them like every week, but now it's just kind of like as needed, sort of, as an extra space for us to speak to things that maybe don't need to fill up a Sunday morning slot or a family meeting or whatever. And so what are we talking about today?
Well, we don't do them every week because we talk about all the things that you could possibly talk about. So once a year is what we're doing now. I think it was in staff meeting last week, just kind of brought up the idea of we do a membership renewal at the end of every year, November-ish. And this year we kind of added some questions to that to just get a little more data rather than simply acknowledging your continued membership or withdrawing your membership. And so we just thought it'd be a good space to just kind of talk about some of the things that came from that and interact with that a bit. So.
Sweet. If someone's listening to this and don't know what like the membership renewal thing is, just, I know that's not what this is about, but you want to explain what that process is or why we do it or whatever.
Yeah, the annual membership renewal process, or the AMRP, as we call it in the biz, is it's literally just a way that we kind of connect with the members once a year, typically towards the end of the summer. It's a way we get feedback. It provides on and off ramps for you all as members. And it's a way we get to be reminded of certain things and also to highlight what's important. And this year we added some stuff in regards to membership, but it's an opportunity for you to tell us, hey, like I want to continue on, or I'd rather not continue on, or hey, this is concerning. And it's just a way that we can have some time with you to learn about how the church is doing, find maybe health spots and unhealthy spots, and kind of go from there.
Sweet. Yeah, we tweak every year. Like I edit the Village Gate stuff in some way, shape, or form. That's evolved a bit over time. And so we encourage folks to read through that or listen to that again just to refresh and make sure folks are aligned around all that stuff. Yeah, and so we did add some questions this year. The results of which we wanted to chat about. What did we add? What did we ask about in general?
Can I add one thing?
Go for it. Yeah.
The flock among us piece is like a real thing, and so there's no like, hey, where's the scripture that talks about church membership? Church membership covenant. That's not in the Bible directly. You're not going to find that in your concordance or whatever. But like for us, we do take seriously as elders the responsibility to shepherd the flock among us. That's not every Christian on the planet. That is every Christian that has committed us into their care and vice versa. And so that's just a thing. And it is, like you said, it's a reminder. We know that when you fill out the annual renewal within 30 seconds, we know that you didn't read the 88 pages that Scott spent, labored over, which is fine. Like we totally get it. But it is a space to evaluate and just say, hey, is the mission that this local church is, engaging in, is that what I'm still committed to?
Yeah.
And so it's an opportunity to remind and also evaluate and reflect whatever. So
that's good. Yeah, I mean, biblically, the elders are called to shepherd the flock. And so to your point, there's not a passage about church membership covenants or whatever, but any faithful pastor is going to wonder who their flock is and want to know who their flock is. And so that's one of the ways that we get to kind of define who those people are, is by, hey, who wants to be in the flock? And also because as the Village, we're elder-led, member-informed. We thought, hey, not just to kind of reaffirm who's in and who's out, but also let's use this thing that specifically is for all of the members every year to maybe ask some specific questions. Like we make space throughout the year with family meetings and just throughout the year. I think we're pretty available and approachable guys, to chat with and whatever. We have plenty of space for conversations, but not necessarily always space to we don't always explicitly go out to get data like from our folks. And so this is a kind of a fresh new way that we get to remain informed by the members, but all of them who fill out this form or whatever. And so, yeah, all good stuff. So what are the things that we wanted to talk about today that we asked about in the survey?
Sorry, yeah, some specific stuff. Like we added questions on location, like how much did where we were matter, about our facility in general with the 210. Like, hey, what are thoughts on Kville and space, and if we moved or if we didn't, and what's important, being above ground or not. There's questions about mission and identifying, even like we said earlier, where do they kind of categorize themselves with committed or acquainted, all that stuff. There's some questions around there. And yeah, it's just, there's probably more than that, but those are some of the main things that jumped off the page, and helping you to kind of understand where our heads are, helping us to understand where your heads are and what's important in those areas. So when we make a decision or we consider a new space, we kind of make it with them and your priorities in the background.
Yeah, it's good. Sweet. Well, let's jump in. Why don't you just read what it is that we ask members on the renewal form? Like, you read the question so folks even know what we're talking about. What did we ask?
So with regard to gathering space, I think it was the only question that we said, try to make the biggest bang for buck, but put the following in order from most important to least important to you. And I know, like, the way that the question was, like, some people struggled a bit, like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out or whatever, but essentially it was, staying downtown, getting above ground, finding a traditional gathering space, more space for, neighbors to sit, essentially more gathering space, and then more kids space were the options. And so that was the question.
Why? So why was this like a timely thing? Like, why include that in this year's annual renewal stuff? Why are we asking about that?
Well, we're always just keeping an eye open for other opportunities and available spaces. Like, that's been something for the last, so many years that we've been doing. And over the summer, an opportunity came up for us to look into that was maybe not exactly what we thought it would be. It was a little outside of our location that we were hoping for. And so we did consider it. Obviously, we want to consider every option. But in the end, like, that brought a lot of questions up. Like, how would people consider moving outside of downtown? Or would that change our mission? Or how would that change our people, or who came, or our distance from 129 or 75? And so that's kind of what led us to this question then, is, hey, if we were to actually jump onto this opportunity with this other location, what would be like the effects of that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, there are a couple things that come to mind with that. I think as we think about gathering space, we don't want to meet in a basement with low ceilings. Like, that's whatever. We found ourselves here. This was the third space that we gathered. We've been here for probably nearly 10 years, I think. And it's been fine, but in no order, I think the things that we consider is like logistics and function. Like, okay, like, can we have space for kids? What's the flow like? What is, do we have enough people or enough seats for people? Can people hear? Like, those are just very logistical, but also, and you can say, well, those aren't very spiritual, but at the end of the day, like, people have to fit into a room. Like, that's just the way that it is. And so, again, these are in no order, but there is just I think the saying is, like, you're always communicating something. And so I remember one of our pastors, Adam Hanauer, he said when he came down in the basement years ago, it was the first time they moved from out of town, trying out this new church. They walked down the stairs and he said, I told my family, like, kids, stay close. Like, we have no idea what we're going to get into. And if you see, like, mom and I, like, head for the door, like, stay close and don't look back, And so, like, that is the thing. And every person that comes down this, those stairs of the elevator, they just don't know what to expect. And I think we delight them in a surprising way. Like, wow, I had no idea. But still, like, vibe is a thing. What the entrance looks like, what the parking lot's like, all those things. And certainly what, going down in a basement, there's the vibe of that is a thing. Hospitality, how much we can be mindful of guests, and signage is a part of that, and just lots of things. But our space, certainly, man, there's only so much you can do with whatever space that you have. And then Matt kind of alluded to it, but just mission and location is a huge part of that. And I think that was the thing, as we had an opportunity that was really 6 or 7 minutes away, but that's a world apart from where we are. And so that really did, in a really sweet way, just say, all right, what are we about? We say we're downtown, but if we weren't downtown, what would that affect? And that really probably has had some greater impact in terms of philosophy of ministry and missional engagement, even with those directly around us, other nonprofits, et cetera. And so I think those are some of the things that you consider as you kind of think about, spaces and opportunity, like what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all kinds of logistical stuff. Our lease was coming to
absolutely.
an end, and so we're re-upping, or we're staying here. Just all sorts of little things like that, timing-wise, and just thinking about, mission and community and all those things that matter to that. A facility facilitates community and mission, and it can do that really well, or it can not. And so we wanted to serve the teams and the people that meet here and that use the space. And so, so it's not like just a building. It is a space, but it is a tool for the kingdom. And so we get to think of it that way, which is why we wanted to ask folks about this.
Yeah, it has impact. It's secondary to some of the primary things of mission and obviously salvation and God's plan and all that, but it is still a thing, and people consider it when they look at churches, the impact of the building and where it is and all that. So it's still important, for sure.
So what did folks say? How do you want to interpret the data, these clumps of bar graphs? Because there are rankings and everyone got to rank them differently. And so the data is a little bit, not that it's not murky, but it's not as clear cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But how would we interpret what those results are?
Yeah. I guess just the reason why we did that. And we asked these questions about several of these questions. Why are we asking this? Is it going to shape anything that we do? And I think, again, Matt pointed to it, we just want to have a pulse on, the felt needs and perspective and perception of people who are part. And so, in some ways, it would have been really nice if it was like a landslide, and this is the obvious thing. And just as broad as can be, there were no major peaks. And so we try to look at what we're assuming that people filled it out correctly and figured out what 1 was and 5 was. There was nothing crazy. The biggest peak is the least important is finding a traditional building. That was nearly double any other peak in there. The other side of that was at the top of what people thought was the most important was staying in the downtown area. Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, tied with finding a traditional church building.
Just weird. So as many people said it was the most important to find a traditional church building as staying downtown. However, more people said finding a traditional church building was their least favorite thing than anything else. And so that's, again, where the data comes a little whatever. Yeah, you got people that feel strongly both sides, which is, hey, that's good. That's what we love. And so, but that was clearly the one peak was the finding a traditional church building, the least important thing for more people than any other option.
And I think what was more clear through all of this was that people do desire to be in a church that connects with this downtown area. Certainly it's hard to read some of the things, but from conversations we had to this information that we're talking about today on this survey, it does feel people in general here want to be a part of something that's local, that is caring about the city, that is more internal than external to what's going on. And that's helpful for us as we are mindful of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are churches that have been planted years ago in this city, downtown, that moved literally to the hill. And by and large, I won't speak for them, but through conversations with people who have been a part of those congregations, it is a bit of a lament, literally. And you get why the church would be on a hill, so that its light might shine upon the people. But there is an element to being among the people when the church gathers that is a sweetness.
And to be fair, we've always been, this is kind of where we've always been, is downtown, and largely almost always been below the ground. And
always been on 2nd Street.
And always on 2nd Street. And so there's a part of that that's we don't want to, it's comfortable, you know what I mean? It's comfortable just to kind of be where we've always been. And so getting a pulse on, do folks, clearly, I think as the data shows, folks would be really interested in being above ground at some point. But it seems like also people are really wanting to stay downtown as well. Those seem to be like the top in terms of kind of how people ranked stuff. Those two seem to be of the most importance equally in some ways. It's kind of hard to sift through it the way it shakes out. If you see it, if you be able to see the bar graphs, you'll know what we're talking about. But I think it's maybe a testament to the fact that folks like where we are and kind of like what's going on here. Also, it would just be it would be a different thing to like pick up and move to a different neighborhood, even if it is 5, 6, 7 minutes away. Like that's a big deal. It's a different feel. It's a different vibe, mission, all those things. Like the community around us is different. And so, there's something to be said for remaining consistent, and being who we are. But also, like, we don't want to just get stagnant. No, we've always been here. And so let's stay here. But it seems like folks are like, let's stay downtown and hang out here.
And I think for us, just as elders, it gave us a greater appreciation for this space. Not that this is the space, or again, not that we'll be here for 10 years, but it is easy to just be here and to wish for better, to think that, if we could only get out then. But it is helpful to know, like, man, this is not nothing, right? And we can make this better, and we can use it, and God is using it. And so I think it just gave me and I think us a greater thankfulness for what we do have, because there are a lot of good things about this space. And it's easy just to view the negatives of, we're landlocked or we're underground, but there's a lot of positives to it as well. It's easy to miss those when you're looking for something else sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we want to talk about where we are in any of that? Outside of
where are we?
Do
you want to tell me where we are?
Well, so like in some of the, there are some notes and kind of space for people to interact and one of the, a couple of the things. It's like, hey, it would be nice to find a bigger building.
Sure.
And like we know that.
Yeah.
And so I think we can be honest here. Scott can scratch this from the record, but we have for the last 6-7 months pursued like other options. What is out there? Like that's been our posture. What is out there? And within a perimeter, although we would be willing to look at stuff beyond, and we did a little bit.
Yep.
Talk to a realtor, like several people who are connected, Chamber of Commerce, like other pastors. What is available?
Folks in the city,
And I my ideal is, downtown, an empty warehouse that we can make whatever we want with tall ceilings. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Traditional church building could be fine as long as logistically it wasn't so disjointed that we couldn't whatever. That seated at least 350 people, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
With plenty of kid space and whatever. And as it stands right now, that doesn't exist, or that's not available. That's not a possibility. And so we have pursued diligently with due diligence what else is out there. And as it is right now, and as Matt said, we get to fall in love with the place that God has given us because right now that is our only option. Yeah. That meets us with lease agreements and whatever, and we have a great relationship with Primary Health, and it seems like they don't want to get rid of us. So right now we're kind of like, okay, well, we're going to be here for a little while, and so let's invest a bit in the space.
I mean, our rent is great for what we pay for the space that we have down here. 2 blocks away from, High Street is crazy. We have a giant brand new parking lot that's there, new lights, everything. We have an elevator that works, handicap accessibility. There's just so much stuff that I know you can walk through the space. You look at our bathrooms and be like, much to be desired. But there are also so many like not even amenities, but just like basic bare bones stuff that when we've gone and looked at other churches, it's like, this is a beautiful church building. There are 8 parking spots and the rest you have to like park on the street. It's like, well, that's not going to work. Or going to some traditional church buildings, which I don't think any of us are opposed to. I grew up going to a traditional church, but beauty and all sorts of stuff there. But some of those buildings are like carved up in such tiny little pockets that it would not facilitate like kids ministry or like the beautiful kind of openness that we have here that facilitates just hanging out and community before and after the gathering. Like it's a good problem to have when we have to shush you like during the welcome on a Sunday morning gathering because people are talking. Like that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
Like there's just stuff about this space that facilitates again the community and the mission, and even some folks like Young Lives. They meet here, and one of the reasons that some of those single moms come here and feel like they are more comfortable showing up is because we're not a traditional church building. Which that's you could say there's pros to being in it, and there are pros to being in a traditional church building. But so there's just lots of stuff to love about the space that we're in right now.
if you are out there and say, oh, I have the space for you guys, we are definitely not saying that we're shooting anything down either. So to Scott's just point, I'll affirm that. Like, we are very mindful of all the benefits of here. At the same time, when we think about stuff, we haven't closed the doors on anything that could be out there. And so if you're out there, like, some of the big building blocks of what we're looking for is like parking, location, price, and layout. Those four things might not be the only things, but those are the big categories. So yeah, like Michael said, we would love a flat, open floor plan. But nothing like that is out there that we know of today. And so that's what we're praying for there.
A couple of other things we asked about, like, oh, would you want some more space for like the main gathering area or more space for kids? Like, how would you rank those? And it seemed like more folks slightly wanted like more kid space than main gathering space, which makes sense. Yep. You know, I know we have, again, classrooms kind of carved up back in our current K-Ville hallway, and the folks there, I mean, a lot of amazing stuff happens back there, but totally get wanting a little bit more breathing room back there. Not just on Sunday mornings, but also Sunday evenings too, for the bridge, for, you know, those students to have some more leg room. The biggest young folks around us, and a growing ministry, which is really cool. So yeah, that was just a point of data as well, that it seemed like bigger kid space, more kid space was seemingly more desired than even main gathering space. So
the least number of people were least interested in more K-Ville space or more kid space, and so that means it was like the lowest priority for the fewest number of people was kid space. And then getting above ground, oddly enough, wasn't polarizing. That is, it wasn't 1 and 5, but it was the highest in the middle of, like, you know, 2, 3, or 4. Let's get above ground. Which
that matters. You know, totally agree.
We would love that too.
I would love not to have to buy grow bulbs to have plants in my office. You can just open the curtains and let them grow. Cool. Anything else about space stuff, gathering space stuff? I think that was good. So the other thing that we talked about was moving to 2 gatherings on a Sunday morning. Do you want to read the question that we asked on the renewal form as it stated, with the options given to select?
How willing would you be to go to 2 gatherings in our current location? No way. Yes, please. It would be difficult and potentially taxing for those serving, but I'm all for creating more space for my neighbors to hear the gospel. That was loaded, wasn't it? Well, I can't not choose that one. Geesh. It doesn't matter what the win would be. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, again, like, why, just like the gathering space question, why was this a thing that we felt like we should ask this past year?
Like, well, first of all, man, no one here is dying to go to 2 gatherings, but the reason why we would is because there is a limited amount of space for the children, for our gathering space. And so that's a real thing. Like, we have kind of done some expansions in our gathering space and bumped back certain walls, and we are basically to the point where we can't do that too much more. And so that's why we're considering this, because there is some slow growth, which we're very thankful for. There is kind of a maxed out capacity in most of our space, and so that is a real thing at some point. That's what brings us to this question.
Sure. So, like, how would, I mean, even just thinking about this theoretically, I know it's like, just add another gathering, and that, you know, makes more space for more people to be able to show up without cramming everyone in one time slot. How does that shape, how might maybe that impact the village specifically, like our church community?
Can I preface?
No. What if I say no?
Man, we know that change is really difficult. And, like, if we move, that's going to make some people angry. It's going to make people happy. If we get that. Going to 2 gatherings, like, man, that's polarizing. Like, there were people that said it doesn't matter what the win would be. Like, no way, right?
Despite having the Jesus answer on there, some people still pick.
And there are other people who were like, yes, sign me up or whatever. About the same number of people. We're not into the data yet. And so, like, man, leading people is tough. Leading people at times like this is tough. Leading the church is tough. And so, like, there's always, like, the felt, like, no one likes change. And we get that. And so that sounds like a setup for me to say, so we're going to 2 That's not it either. Like, we want to be mindful of what's happening. we know that church growth in particular it's the most bizarre thing. Jesus says, like, go and multiply, like, make more of us. And yet when church plants or small churches do that, then everyone always had, like, it's just this natural effect of like, well, I'm not in the inner circle and I'm not whatever. So like I've been expanded out. I'm not as important or whatever, which is, I hate that. Don't want that to be the case. Or like, yeah, it just doesn't feel like a family. I liked it when there were 30 of us, and now there's 300 of us. Like, as if, and I'm not projecting this, I get all those feelings, but then you have, Jonah saying, gosh, Nineveh repented. Like, like, this is why I didn't want to go tell. And it's like, so like, we're mindful of all those things. And really, like, it's not that all that comes to head around a two gatherings conversation, but in some ways, like, we get that it really does. So the tensions around that are, okay, more commitment. If you're preaching or you're in the band or you're media, whatever, does that mean that I'm here for 6 hours? If I'm serving in kids, what does that mean? Do we need more volunteers? Do we need whatever? And so the logistics become the difficult thing. And I think the pushback is primarily around, oh, I won't get to see all the people, and it will feel like a disjointed church family, which is obviously a thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And gosh, I just don't want to be overwhelmed with serving. Like, those are the two pushbacks. So when we have those conversations, those are certainly problems to be solved or obstacles to be considered, I think.
Yeah. From people and those concerns or considerations from folks that aren't wanting to, like, shortcut Jesus in their week, and I don't want to spend any more time with that's not at all, or people that aren't willing to serve. Because like, real conversations with people who serve incredibly well, that's just, it's so much to then either you're doubling the amount of volunteers that you need a Sunday, or you're asking folks to stick it out twice, whether that's serving 2 times in a row or to double volunteer. Oh, you're serving at one gathering and then hanging out and just like being a part of the next one, depending on if you're kids or whatever. It just becomes logistically more complicated and more demanding to make those things happen. And church, like our Sunday morning gathering stuff, we've never wanted it to be a performance, a show, a thing that we're putting on. And churches that have multiple gatherings, they can do that without it being that too. But it becomes a lot more work. Yeah. Which I'm not saying it's not worth it, but that is just a thing that could happen. On the flip side, like, you don't get to go to 2 gatherings, you're committed to one, and so at some point you have then capped, like, you've capped how many folks you can invite. Neighbors that can come, folks that can join us on a Sunday morning, because there's only so much space, especially when we're talking about being in a basement here at the Village. Like, there's maybe one extra step that we can take to add some seats down here, and that's it. Like, unless we're going to start putting seats, all the way back towards the coffee bar, for folks to like tune in from way back there. But like, there's pros and cons to all of it that Absolutely. Shapes and caps and changes things. And so, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And we're not the first church to have these considerations. And there's resources and, we've not like dove in to like solve these things yet because we haven't had to. I think in terms of numbers, we have an occasional gathering, and I would say more increasingly that feels full. Mm-hmm. And so that's what kind of prompts us to say, all right, if we are committed to stay in the space, then how do you feel about 2 gatherings? Because if we do what we hope the Spirit leads us into, and that's make, mature, and multiply disciples, then we will have to navigate this.
Right.
And if the issue is there's not another building, or we can't just buy, or we can't just find another building, then this is like the thing. And so I think one of you mentioned that we have had expansions over time. And when we first came to this space, we could seat about 75, maybe 80. We bumped it out and moved a partial skid wall, and then I think relatively quickly that filled up. And then we moved it again after COVID. And then now we have Sundays that are full or fuller. Yeah. And so the idea is like, well, man, then if you have 2 gatherings, like, would that trend continue? Mm-hmm. And if it would, then you like say, all right, well, what does that look like? And is that the opportunity that God's inviting us into? So we know those tensions. We're not eager to disrupt stuff for disruption's sake, but I also don't want to be the reason why we trip ourselves up from growing in significant ways. And so that's why we asked the question.
100%. And we know, and we can come back to this towards the end, but yeah, church planting. We're a church planting church. We want to plant churches. And so, there's too many people here. Like, gosh, well then let's, as we still do, like we're still praying and asking and trying to prime our church for the next time we send folks out. So it's like, part of our philosophy as a church and what we hope for is that God would send people out from us to go do that. And so we've done that once already, and that made some space, That's also because there were folks here wanting to do that. And so, we can save that for a few minutes down the road. But honestly, one of those full Sundays was this past Sunday from the time we're recording this. Like we have 250 seats-ish, right, out there right now. And we had to bring out more chairs on Sunday, just this past Sunday, January of 2023. So, it's a real thing. It's a thing that we need to kick around and talk about. So
also, sit closer to your neighbor.
That's right. So what did folks have to say about, what was the response on the survey stuff?
It seems like the vast majority, 64%, were like, it would be difficult and potentially taxing, but I'm all for creating more space for my neighbor to hear the gospel, which is clearly a loaded response. That's the okay. And so whether people just said, I'll choose that one because whatever. Some people, 9% roughly, which is about 6. So I think there were 70 responses representing families in some way, said no way. And then 14% said, doesn't matter what the win would be, not a chance. I'm out. And then 12% was like, yes, please, let's do that, which is just interesting. So most of the people were like, that would be tough, and we would try to navigate that as the best way possible and not kill people serving or whatever. But that would be tough. But man, if that's what it took for the mission to go forth, then so be it. That's 41 responses. Said that.
Yeah. I'd say a quarter of the people were like, nah, no thanks. 12% were like, yeah, and then 64 were like, okay, we have to. If that's what Jesus would ask of us. Yeah. So I don't know. Takeaways from that. I don't know what you guys interpret that stuff, but
I think what that does is no one's racing to this. What we want you to know is that this is not something we're going to say, well, based on this we're doing this tomorrow. This is just something for us to consider down the road as by God's grace we get growth. But be it we've joked that that's kind of the Jesus answer, that's the right answer. It is, I think, what the Bible would want us to consider, right? We don't want anyone to be arm wrestled into a right decision, but I think that's the heart that we want to have, and that's the heart that we hope our church has. Is you know what, not all of the Bible is fun and games. Some of it is sacrifice, and some of it is work. And we want to make sure, though, that if we go this route, that it is the right decision. That's the biggest thing, right? We're not against that effort and that work and saying some maybe gospel goodbyes if we go to 2 gatherings because this might be the right thing. But also at the same time, we want to make sure that this doesn't come as out of left field for our church, and we want to make sure our church knows why we would do these things and the need for it. And so that's kind of just an opportunity.
Yeah, there is a relational capacity that everyone has, and because of what we get to do, because we are on staff at a church, and our primary responsibility is shepherding and pastoring, we get to be involved in more people's life than most, thankfully. But we know that everyone, and the reality is everyone has already reached, with the number of people that gather now, there's no way that you can have real life connections with all of those people, certainly on a Sunday. And that's why the saying is, as you grow larger, grow smaller at the same time. And so it's why you have to be committed to, community group or whatever that looks like, smaller circles of community where you live life together. And so we know that's a thing. And at the same time, when Jesus left, the church was 120 people. I'm sure Peter and those guys didn't know all of those people as, 3,000, 5,000 coming to Jesus in one day, trust him. And they're like, oh my, you know what they said? We need more group leaders. What are we going to do? We're like, we need a bigger temple, or we need house churches, whatever it was. It was these obstacles and opportunities aren't new. They had relational capital just like we have. That's why Jesus chose 12 and not 12,000 to walk around with. And so that is the mindfulness of the mission and how it plays out in a local church. Will we be a church of 10,000? Probably not. That's okay. And so we want to steward the resources that we have as best as we can. And we also want gathering with the church to be a delight. We know that it takes sacrifice and service now. And we try to, we don't want people serving more than once a month if they're out of the gathering and all those things as best as we can. And we have a great culture of that. And so if we moved to 2 gatherings, we would try to continue to make sure that you didn't loathe showing up on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. I mean, I think our whole church thrives and is enjoyed. I think the way that all of us look at stuff, we're mission minded, but by and large, like, we're not overlooking the people that are already part of the village in order to like think, oh, how do we get the folks that aren't here yet in here, as if like they're more important than the folks that are already here. Like, once again, kind of going back to even the very beginning, like our call is to shepherd the flock that is among us already. And so we never want to like push the folks that are already here to a place where we're doing them harm in service of something else. And so so just know that we're, as of January 12th, 2023, we're not doing this podcast because there are plans to move to 2 gatherings. So like just know we're not priming the pump for anything here at all. But at the same time, like there's a difference between hurting and harming. And so like never want to harm the folks that are here with us. But also, like, there are growing pains sometimes to things, and we might have to be stretched in things that we do and together as a church. And so who knows what that'll play out in. But I guess the reason that we want to talk about this stuff with you all, ask your opinion about this stuff, share these results, and also just kind of layering on all these other things is, gosh, like, we're not going to rush into something that's going to blow up the church. We want to walk in that stuff together in unity as we walk through lots of other stuff together in unity as well. All for the good of the folks that are already here and also for the sake of whatever God might want to do in and through us. And so the last thing that I wanted to hit on this morning was just the relationship with the village. So we asked kind of ask folks to kind of define the terms of their relationship with the church. And so do you want to read, Michael, again, kind of what we asked folks in the categories and such?
Yeah, how do you view your relationship to the village based on the following categories? And those categories were acquainted, connected, or committed. That was it. So acquainted meaning casual, sporadic, connected, regular, present, committed, intentional, taking ownership, etc.
Yeah. Why did we ask folks to plunk themselves in a box this year?
Clarity matters on anything, but like as an example, if you were traveling somewhere and needing directions and you're like, hey, help me get here, we would say, well, where are you? And then we can help you to maybe get there. And that's kind of what this question is we're asking members, hey, like, identify where you are in, these boxes don't matter for anything other than helping you to maybe see, hey, this is where you might be, and then is that where you want to be, and what are like the things that you might be able to grow in, and how might we be able to shepherd and care for you moving forward with things. And so this just gives us a gauge of maybe where you think you are, where our church is in general based on some information, and it helps us to know like, oh, okay, this is how we might be able to move forward and shepherd the people that where they say they are.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, self-assess. One of the questions as we kicked this around was like, what would we even do with this? Like, why are we asking? And the danger is that we would ask someone to categorize themselves, or that we would then treat you as if you're categorized. And so to be clear, and I think it was set up kind of as I processed this stuff, but this was not for us to look at your name and then see where you find yourself. It was not like individualized, like, hey, like, man, I want to see what they think, and we're going to, like, no, it was to get a pulse. And if 90% of the church said, man, I feel acquainted, that is a problem for us. Like that. So it means that people aren't connected, they don't have meaningful relationships, they're not bearing weight, and that's in the eye of the beholder. So it is a self-assessment. It's not something that we're not labeling you.
Yeah, it's not a grade that we give you.
Yeah, and so it's not personalized. It is. So that would say, oh my gosh, people aren't connected, and so that would cause us to say, man, what are the other issues? That's kind of whatever that is. And so it really is a self-assessment. It's a pulse, and it's also an opportunity for you to gauge, like Matt said, like, if you feel one way or another, or at least know that that's a consideration, my goodness, I am sporadic in my, when I show up. I am, I don't bear any weight. I'm not serving. I'm not giving. I'm not connected to meaningful relationships. And it's like, oh, wow, I should be. If this is my church and I'm considering myself a part of this church community, then I should be. And so it is also just by way of reminder that we want people to be committed to the mission and how that fleshes out here at the Village.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's a natural, honestly, we ask folks to, again, look through the Village gate and, just where are you at? And so it's just hey, how did you answer that question? It is just a fruit of that stuff. And so what did folks, how did folks respond to this one?
So remember, these are members that filled this out.
Correct, yeah.
Which is not insignificant when you look at the scope of,
not
the
just
gathering
attenders.
church.
Yeah.
Right. So 70% said they were acquainted. I'm just kidding. That's not true. No one clicked the box that said, I am merely acquainted, which is really encouraging. The majority felt like they were committed, which is 62%. And that's kind of like the deepest defining of the relationship. They're all in. And then 35% said that they felt connected, which is not horrible. And some of those had some prefaces of season of life, and
sure,
I want to be, but right now it's really hard, and work is whatever. And so we hear you, and we totally get those things. And thanks for sharing that. So
yeah. Basically, almost 2/3 said they're committed for listening, and basically around 1/3 said they were connected, which is helpful for us to know of members.
Fantastic. I think it's really good. One of our desires is to not have a list of names on a membership sheet, and we don't know half of them. We haven't seen half of them in forever. And so again, part of our desire for all this stuff, membership in general, is so that we know who the flock is and we can care for them. And so it is encouraging, that 90-some% of the people that, filled out membership renewal stuff would say that they are at least connected, if not fully committed, which connected's there's a regular presence, and you have meaningful relationships in those things. And so that's really good. And so that's an encouraging response to those questions. So
absolutely.
Pretty sweet. So in general, anything else? Because, we always make space for folks to, is there anything else that you want us to know? You want to share with us, whatever, which is opening ourselves up for whatever. Anything that you want to share that we got, maybe that was notable from kind of that last little field?
Yeah, that is opening us up for criticism, and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Honestly, and to the flip of that,
that's what it's there for.
By and large, there were just a ton of encouraging words. And so I would just say, if you're filling this out and you think, no one's reading this or whatever, this is at least in some way proof that we had to prep for this podcast. We read your words.
Yep.
And so your words of encouragement and even particular things that you love about the Village or the people or whatever, it's meaningful to us. Mm-hmm. And we are super thankful for your words. There were a couple fun facts, which just is just hilarious. And so, Alaska is the only state whose name is on one row on a keyboard.
Yeah.
And then some things about monarch butterflies migrating every third or fourth generation, which is really encouraging. So thank you for making sure that we know those things.
I learned more than I thought.
As a result of that, yeah. So it's good. Fills us out.
There were a couple comments about just safety for Kville, which is just a priority. It wasn't a response to anything. It was really in response to gathering space, and it was, hey, we feel safe right now. That's a high priority. And I don't know if we really need to go into it, but we have prioritized safety all around the 210 recently, thanks to Matt's leadership and some of that stuff. And then, some, hey, it would be really great to keep one gathering and, maybe get a bigger space or whatever. And I think we spoke to all those things. That would be our desire as well.
Yeah.
And at the same time, sometimes we have other desires as well. And somebody asked about church planting. When are we, planting our next church? When's that?
Probably Tuesday.
No, it's a really good question. Because we're part of Acts 29. We say we're a church planting church. And so, hey, like, what's going on with that? How would you guys answer that?
I mean, it certainly is in our hands to a degree, and it's also out of our hands to a degree, right? Like some of the things we consider in planning a church is who will be kind of the point person that does this, and are there people that would support that and want to be a part of that, and where and when and resources. And so all those things aren't in place as of now, so we don't have like a clear timeline or a picture as to how that could look. That's always on our radar, and we are having conversations about new pastors and people that might be able to do this, and so it's not off the radar. We are saving for these opportunities as well and investing in a church planting locally. But yeah, like until probably we find that person or God brings about this in a more defined way, we're just going to be waiting a little bit and then doing what we can do in our control to make this happen. But certainly we're waiting on God to kind of also do His thing with this.
Sure.
Yeah, we want to be healthy as a church, which, at what size can you send, a third of your people out or, a quarter of your people out? That's significant, and certainly we did that, and we learned from that, with Cedar City and all those things. But, so we're not forcing it. We're not saying, if we were a church that was a church of 800, there are churches, there are churches in this country that won't plant until they can send out 800 people with 6 full-time staff. That's not us. We can't send that if, whatever. And so that's a thing. And so we want to make sure that we're healthy. We are pursuing health financially and other things that would kind of lend us to that space or whatever. And so we're looking at those things. But we're also, so if we were a larger church and we had 8 community groups or 6 or 5 that were an outlier to the core of where we were, and we might say, man, maybe that would be a good space. We're also not at that space in terms of numbers, and that's totally fine.
Yep.
And so we're not saying we're going to plant a church here or there or anywhere. What we do get to do is we get to create a culture of multiplication that says in our groups, maybe in our gatherings, whatever it is, in our homes, we get to multiply disciples. We get to care about quality leaders, character, gifts, and we get to fan the flame of those gifts, and we get to be mindful. And so we get to create a culture where those things are, able to move forward and grow and equip and progress. But we're also not trying to force something prematurely or unnecessary. And so, we're planning for that with our financial stewardship and stewardship in all the other ways. But we currently don't have a plan to do that.
Yeah. So just invite, if you're listening to this, invite you into praying, giving financially if you can to support, even that stuff to help us prepare for whatever that looks like down the road. And to honestly just be ready, open, have your ears, eyes, heart, mind open to where the Lord might call you into that stuff. Would He ask you at some point to be part of a church plant? Would He ask you to stay and be part of this thing as we send people out, just for you to even put your head there, in some ways as well. Because at the end of the day, if and when, I think it's a when we send out our next church plant. That's not a thing that the elders do. That's a thing that the whole church does. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's also a hard thing and a painful thing to do, but it's part of what we get to do. And so that's a thing that involves all of us. And certainly, as we continue to save, talk, till the soil, have conversations, and there are a couple of folks who have talked to us about, hey, that's a thing that maybe I'm interested in at some point. We're talking with those people and inviting that stuff. So as we're doing that, you also get to kind of be mindful of where your heart's at, praying for that, wanting that, being open to that as well. So any other things of note before we wrap this up?
I'll say one thing. No one has ever, in the many years that we've been doing this, selected the off-ramp. No one has ever said, I'm clicking the thing that I'm no longer... I don't think anyone has ever done that.
Yeah.
But certainly we lose members, and people either drift off into oblivion and we don't know where they were, which is much easier for us to journey with if you are a member. That's why, again, membership matters. But every year we do this, and we know that most people will click the thing and whatever, answer it, and they're all in or whatever. And we know that there are a handful who just forget, and so we remind you This is a reminder. There are a handful of people who still haven't filled it out for the end of 2022. And we also know that every year there's probably 1 or 2 or 3 people or families that, for whatever reason, won't whatever. And so we do want to have conversations, and we do want to define relationships. We want to learn and grow. And so wherever this finds you, if you've not filled that out and you're just like, oh gosh, I need to do that. And you'll probably hear from us, soon, us tapping your shoulder and saying, hey, what's the deal? And not what's the deal like do the thing, but what's the deal? Is there something we need to know?
Yep.
And so that's just kind of the heart behind why we do this in general. So
100%. Cool. Well, thanks, guys, for making time to talk about this. Thanks for listening. If you've gotten this far, appreciate that. Thanks to those of you who filled out the form and gave us feedback. Super helpful for us as we think about the future of the village. If you have any questions about any of that stuff, if you want to see the wild bar graphs, let us know. We'd be happy to share those things with you. But yeah, thanks, guys. We love pastoring the village. Love you guys. We'll see you next time, whenever we do one of these things again. See ya.